Welcome to another episode of Dad Can We Talk? I am your host, Anthony Ray, and this is episode 113 of Dad Can We Talk, man. We are pushing and rolling right along. For all my listeners and followers, anyone that might listen to this, if you might be wondering how you can help the podcast, I always say the same thing. The best way to help the podcast is go to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Dad Can We Talk. It's the most simple way. I mean, ain't too many other ways you can help, but that's like one of the greatest ways. You know, I'm trying to get my subscribers up. I'm a little behind in the game. I really didn't start posting my videos like that until about a year and a half ago. So I wish I could have had all 113 videos posted, but I got most of them posted on the YouTube. So I've been trying to build a YouTube channel. So that's like one of my biggest goals for this year, just trying to get as many subscribers as possible. Eventually I'll be able to monetize the podcast, but until then, we're gonna continue to push. I'm not allowing any of that type of stuff to discourage me in any way, shape, or form, because it's honestly not about that for me. When I first got into this, it was about highlighting Black fathers. Honestly, that was like my main goal. I want to highlight all the good dads out there, man. And that's what I'm continuing to stay focused on. If anything comes out of that, I'll gladly take it. But if nothing else comes out of this and all I do is increase the awareness of fatherhood and all the great dads all over this nation, or really the world. I've had one guy from England come on the podcast. So just trying to highlight good dads, man, to show people that dads are great. We are needed. We are important. All black dads aren't deadbeats. We are not all missing and absent. And I just want to really spread that message and show people that, you know, there's some great dads out here that really love their families, love their children. And that's what Dad Can We Talk is about. So without further ado, man, today I want for y'all to welcome to the Dad Can We Talk community, the director of dream.org. He's been featured on the HBO documentary Growing Up Milwaukee. He's been featured on the Lake Effect podcast. He's been in Urban Milwaukee, and he's done many other things on many other outlets. So I'm ready to welcome him and hear his story on Dad Can We Talk. Welcome to the show, my man, Sean Wilson. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, my brother. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, I'm good, man. I'm ready to get to it, man. Talk some family, fatherhood. This is like my therapy at times, you know, where I can really get some things off my chest and allow other guys to get some stuff off their chest and hear somebody else's story, man. So that's what we're gonna do on today. So I'm gonna start it off how we always started off, man. We always have the same first question on the podcast, and that's where we're gonna start today. First question I got for you. I want for you to talk about what your relationship was like with your dad.
Thank you for that question. So the relationship that I had with my dad was non-existent. I'm the product of a one night stand. However, you know, I had a great relationship with my grandfather. I had a great relationship with my uncles. And so they took that role of father figure in my life. And so that relationship with these men who pretty much showed up where my father failed to was one of that was very informative. There was a lot of discipline, you know, instilled in me. There was a lot of examples given to me on what it means to be a father, on what it means to be a man who understood their responsibilities to themselves, understood their responsibilities to their household, and ultimately understood their responsibilities to their community and the world at large. And so although I didn't have a father in my life, I never called another man dad or father before, other than my father-in-law. I had great examples in my grandfather and in my uncles.
I love that, man. Love that. Shout out to all the other men, outside of our biological dads that do step in. That's so important. And I think that's a very slept on thing. Um, Many guys didn't grow up with their biological dad, but um, that doesn't always mean that they're fatherless.
Absolutely.
I think at times, we throw fatherless around so much, especially in the Black community, and a lot of us are truly fatherless. But shout out to all the uncles and brothers and family friends and granddads, role models in our community that do step in and assume that role. They're so important, and I don't think even I think I want to start trying to do that more on the podcast, get more uncles, guys that might not have their own children, but have helped to raise children, stepdads and stuff, man. They're so important, bro.
Absolutely. Very, very, very much important. I think we need more of that in the Black community, especially when we look at the state of our young people all over the country. Many of these young men, many of these young women are, behaving in a manner in which they're behaving because they don't have a father in their life, or they don't have a strong male presence in their life. And so they're not being admonished for certain behavior that they're engaging in. They're not being deterred from doing things that they shouldn't be doing as a result of the lack of that male presence, that the lack of that disciplinarian in their life. And the reason I say that is because I will attribute my not having a father in my life. I would attribute that to, I will say that had a major contribution to me ultimately making a poor decision, giving in to peer pressure, and ultimately landing in prison, was not having, my dad in my life. That was a contributing factor to my childhood trauma. And as you know, they say hurt people hurt people. So I would definitely say that we need more men, whether biological or not, in our community, who will step into the role of disciplinarian, who will step into the role of role model, and actually, deter these young people from doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
That's so real, man. Talk about the importance of mentorship when it comes to young Black boys. What's the like, just talk about that. Talk about how important that is for young men to have mentors in their life.
I think it's very important, specifically in the Black community. I think when we look at the numbers, we have 42% of the prison population nationally is Black. I think when we break down those numbers even further, we have probably about 500,000 of that 42% that are fathers. And so when you remove the father from the household, when you remove the father from the community, what happens within their children is antisocial behavior. What happens is a disregard for their community and other individuals. There's a lot of hurt there. There's a lot of trauma there, and they begin to act out those things in a manner that puts them on the same path that their father has pretty much landed on. And so mentorship comes along, and mentorship deters those young people from doing things that will land them in the graveyard or may land them in the prison. In the HBO documentary Growing Up Milwaukee, I was a mentor. I'm currently a mentor. I'll be a mentor for the rest of my life, because mentorship comes along, it instills in you a certain perspective that you may have never even thought of, had this mentor or this person came along into your life. And so I think mentorship provides guidance. Mentorship provides healing. I think mentorship provides inspiration and ideas on what it is that you can and can't do. Mentorship is very important in the Black community, because when you have a lack of male role models, when you have a lack of fathers in the home as a result of them being sent to prison and these children being left without fathers, it deters them from doing things that they know they have no business doing. So I'm a big proponent of mentorship, not only in the school system, but mentorship in the community, because our young brothers and sisters need someone that's going to grab them by their shoulders and say, listen, you're thinking about going down that path. That's not a path that you need to go down. You need to, reconsider and readjust, your thinking as it pertains to the decisions that you're about to make.
Man, that's so good, man. And I think it's so true. A few years ago, I was mentoring a young man, and sometimes I think people can get discouraged when it comes to mentorship, especially when you're going into some of the rougher neighborhoods. And a lot of these young men, once they hit that 16, 17-year-old range, they a lot of them have already made up their minds, and sometimes, as we have these good intentions, and at times it won't. I mean, some guys will just go down that path. I always think about this young man that I was mentoring. He was probably about 18, 17 when I first met him. And just going to the neighborhood weekly, just really talking with him and trying to see where he was at. He had all these different things going on. And I remember one day asking him, what was his plan? I'm like, I mean, you're 18, you didn't graduate high school. Like, what are you gonna do, bro? I mean, you're 18. Like, you ain't getting no older, no younger. And he was like, I can't get no job, I ain't got no ID and all this stuff. So I'm like, man, listen, bro, I go help you get your ID, whatever you need. And so, long story short, man, I went and ran him around the city, getting his social security card, birth certificate, his ID, did all that. And the next day I come back, the next week I came to the neighborhood and asked him how the job search was going. In so many ways, he was just like, bro, why are you keeping tabs on me? Like I'm good. I ain't looking for no job. And at that point, I just put my hands up, like, it is what it is, bro. I've done my part, and now I got to let you see. And maybe about 2 or 3 months later, he ended up catching the case, man. He got 15 years.
Wow.
And when he went in, I waited for about 6 or 8 months to write him, and I ended up sending him a letter. And he was so surprised to hear from me, because he was thinking, oh, he probably like, why this dude writing me? Like, he probably think, he was just apologizing when he wrote me back. And I just let him know, man, listen, I don't care what happened in the past, bro. I'm still right here, and I still got love for you, and the past is the past. And I was only trying to tell you what was right when you were out here. The whole time it was never, he always thought it was, oh, you think you know everything and all this. And I'm like, bro, it's not about that, man. Like, I just been in your position before.
Absolutely.
I got friends that went down that road. I never went down the road, but thank God I changed before any of that stuff happened, man. And so sometimes it can be discouraging, because I remember around that time when he did tell me what he told me, I was like, man, I ain't talking to that joker no more. I don't care what happened to him. And then once I heard about him, I was like, dang, I can't do that, man. I can't allow something like that to make, like, I gotta let him know I'm still here for him, because I know everybody else is about to turn their back on him. And so, like, have you ever experienced something like that, dealing with young men? And in what ways can men really get involved with that age group, that 16 to 20 age range? Like, is that something you ever dealt with?
Absolutely. I think what we have to do is continue to show up as men. I think we have to continue to show up as big brothers, as individuals who have that lived experience, who was once in that young man's shoes and know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what they're experiencing from the individuals who they are surrounded by. Also understanding the environment in which they find themselves in. The young man that I had the opportunity to mentor on growing up in Milwaukee, he was someone who like turned away all of the other mentors. He was, very resistant, very disrespectful to them. However, I was someone that, he gravitated to. I was someone who he listened to. And I like to think that the reason that he listened to me, and I'm still in communication with him. The reason I think that we were able to forge a strong dynamic relationship is because I connected with him outside of, his quote unquote problematic behavior. I connected with him on, what his hopes and dreams were. And then I allowed that to segue into other things that he was dealing with. And so I often paralleled some of the things that he was going through with my own life and my own journey, and ultimately let him know that the things that you're thinking about that is detrimental to your well-being, guess what? I thought about that, and here was the end result. In addition, the things that you're thinking about that is good for your well-being, I thought about that and didn't go down that path. But if I had gone down that path, this would have been the likely outcome. So we have two forks. We have a fork in the road. We have this path and we have that path. If we go down this path, this is what we're going to experience. And I'm telling you that you're going to experience this because I went down this path and wound it up with 17 years in the penitentiary, removed from my family, removed from my community, removed from all of the aspirations that I wanted to indulge in as a result of making the wrong decision. However, if I would have gone down this path, the path that many of my friends went down, graduated high school, went on to college, played college sports, ran track and field, went on to, live a successful life where they have families and they're traveling, they're doing all of the things that, everyone would like to do. They're living the American dream, basically. Now, which choice excites you most? Does this choice excite you most, or does the choice that I made that led me to the penitentiary excite you most? And he always said the choice of, doing that which is right and making an honest living was what excited him most. And so the more he was inclined to those type of pathways and making those type of decisions, the more I began to create a plan for him to go down the pathway that will allow him to be successful. And he just about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he texted me a picture of his diploma. He graduated high school. He just told me a couple of months ago he has his own apartment. Furnished, it's furnished. The only issue we ran into an issue where he was in need of some groceries, and I was able to, help him out in getting some groceries. But I let him know that I'm here for the long haul. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, I'm investing in you, because I know that all our young people need is adults and the people in their life to invest in them, not to write them off. Young people can be very disrespectful. They can be very resistant to change and unwilling to hear you out. However, the more you show up, the more you conversate with them, the more you connect with them on their level, the more they begin to open up. So I think we just gotta, hunker down and like really understand that we're dealing with young people who is suffering from a great deal of trauma. And if we wash our hands of them, what winds up happening is the streets come in where we left them. The bad influences come in where we left them. So let's not leave a void in these young people's lives. Let's hunker down and invest in who they are and what their potential is. I think that's what we have to do in order to exemplified what successful mentorship looks like in this country.
Yeah, man, listen, y'all, if you listening, this man speaking the real. He is speaking the truth. Man, what's one of the most valuable lessons that you've learned from either your granddad or one of your role models growing up?
One of my mentors said to me, I was in prison actually. And I had just went to segregation as a result of some false allegations. And ultimately everything panned out. You know, the allegations wasn't true and I was released from segregation. And so this brother who had a life sentence, who used to always give me books and always, like, you know, challenge my thinking. And, you know, we used to go back and forth with vocabulary words and what's the meaning of the word. What is it? Is it an adjective? Is it a noun? You know, just basically educating one another. And so I got out of segregation and I was walking the track with him. And I was telling him what I was about to do. Like, man, this guy lied on me and he, you know, made me lose my single cell. You know, he disrupted, you know, everything I had going on. You know, now I got to re-enroll in school. Like, just really created an inconvenience for me. And I was, you know, talking reckless, being completely honest. And my mentor, my big brother, who I like to call him, he said to me, he said, man, you're under divine manifestation. And everything that happens to you is to build character, is to make you a better human being. And so you doing something to him only causes harm to you. It doesn't do anything for him, but it has the greatest impact on you. And so ever since I was told that, everything that happens to me in my life, I attribute it to divine manifestation. Like, all of this is God's plan. Like, as humans, we cannot detract from God's plan. And when things happen in our life that is unpleasing, that we are questioning why it happened, the appropriate response is to seek the wisdom in those moments. It's to allow it to build character, because we often hear, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. And so whenever things happen to me, I always sit back and reflect on, what am I supposed to get out this situation? What am I supposed to get out of this individual talking crazy to me? What am I supposed to get out of this situation not unfolding the way that I want it to unfold? And I always get pure wisdom that informs me on how I need to show up in future situations that may occur in my life.
That's so real. That's real, man. Yes, sir. How would you say, like, looking at, you know, everything that you've been through, and you say you were down for 17 years?
Yep, 17 years.
And how long have you been out?
I've been home now a little bit over 6.5 years.
6.5 years, 6.5 years. How have you transitioned? You know, because I got a few friends. I got one friend that just got out. He got out last year. He did 15. And when he got out, he did good. I say about 4 months, he did really good. And then I slowly realized, like the spiral downward. And I don't think he ever really recovered from that. How have you been able to keep for one, because one thing I notice about a lot of guys when they do get out, it's in here.
Yep.
How have you been able to keep your mental intact and continue to progress, since since you've been on the outside?
So, and I say this often, I got out of prison before I got out of prison. And what I mean by that is I got out mentally before I got out physically. So for 17 years, I was physically locked up, never mentally locked up. Upon my arrival in prison, there were a few things that I had to get out my system as an immature 17, 18-year-old kid. I had to get that out my system. And once that got out my system, I began to open up the book and come into the knowledge of who I was as a young Black teenager who found himself in a correctional setting for the next 10 plus years of my life. And when I came into that realization, I understood that I couldn't sit back and accept what has happened to myself, nor what was happening to the individuals who were of the same age as me. And so I began to open up that book. I began to open up multiple books, in fact, and begin to study to better understand who I was as a Black man in America. I began to come into the understanding of what my responsibility was, first and foremost, to myself, my responsibility to my family, my responsibility to my community and the world as a whole. And so my entire 17 years of incarceration was spent in the book. It was spent in understanding the carceral system, understanding the world. And I understood that there was a great injustice that was done to me. And I was committed to exposing this system for the harm that not only it did to me, but the harm that it continues to do to Black boys all over this country. And so I got out of prison before I got out of prison. Each waking hour while I was in prison, I moved through the prison setting as though I was already out in the free world. I was having conversations with individuals about what are their plans upon release. I was interacting with the staff about the policies and the rules that they had in place that was unjust. Because prisons are a microcosm of the world. The same thing that is happening in the world is happening in the prisons, just on a smaller level. And so I've been organizing, I've been challenging systems before I even got the opportunity of coming home in the free world and challenging the system in its current form. And so because I got out of prison before I got out of prison, upon my entrance into prison, I was able to successfully reintegrate because one, I knew that I shouldn't have been in prison in the first place. I knew that me being in that environment was not for me. It's not for anybody. It's inhumane. It's unjust to place a human being in essentially a closet for an extended period of time, to place a human being in an environment where there's sensory deprivation going on. And so being in that environment, it fueled a fire that already existed in me. It allowed me to sit back and really reflect on not only my poor decision making, not only my impression of me being impressionable and being a follower, but it allowed me to put forth defenses so that I won't be so quick to make a decision that's going to have an adverse effect on me, so that I can be very discreet in the individuals that I hung out with and that I allowed into my circle. And so I'm able to sit here and have this conversation with you as the organizing director of this nonprofit that works on criminal justice reform, that works on climate justice, that works on creating equity in the tech sector for Black and brown communities. I'm able to sit here before you and have this conversation because I prepared for the last 17 years of my time in prison to do this very work. And so I am committed to remaining out. I was committed to getting out. And oftentimes individuals, when they find themselves in prison, they don't do that internal work. They don't do that healing work. They spend their days watching television, playing dominoes, arguing with one another, gossiping, looking at pictures of their old life prior to them coming to prison. Whereas me, if you saw me playing the game, it was chess. If you see me having a conversation, arguing with someone, it was about a book that he and I read and got different interpretations from the book, and we were differing amongst one another on what each of our interpretations were and who was right in the matter. And so that's how I spent my entire incarceration, and I just came home and I'm continuing to do the very thing that I did in prison. Surround myself with individuals who are thinkers, individuals who are all about betterment of themselves, of their families, of their communities, of the world as a whole. And now I surround myself with like-minded individuals. Oftentimes when folks get out of prison, they return to the environments in which they were arrested in. They return to those same crowds. When I got out of prison, when I went back to my old neighborhood, guess what they were doing? The same thing that they were doing 17 years ago. So I immediately knew that this wasn't the crowd or the company that I wanted to keep. We were on two different wavelengths. They were still thinking on Earth, and I was thinking on Mars. You know what I mean? So it's all about changing the type of people that you hang out with, but more importantly, it's about changing your mental, man. It's all about changing your mental.
Man, that's so real, boy. And it all honestly, it makes so much sense, you know, because I talk with so many different guys, man. Got a lot of friends and people that I've met and I always see the difference between the ones that get out and excel and the ones that, like you say, go right back to that same environment. And that it just, all the guys that I see that have excelled since they've been out say some of the similar things, you know, like they really did that work while they were inside and really prepared themselves mentally because, you know, like I tell a lot of my friends, like the one I was talking about earlier, you know, I was telling him, brothers, the world is not the same since when you first went in. You know, we live here, we from Gainesville. Gainesville is nothing in 2023 like it was in 2009, bro. Nothing. If you ride around the city, you know, it's a college town, the University of Florida Gators, and it's everything is based on the university, and they are just building. Everywhere you go, all you see is new developments, and like I'm telling him, bro, I mean, you know, if you got locked up in 2009, bro, we were barely using smartphones at that time. Barely. You know, we had, you know, the little Blackberries or whatever, but nothing like what we got today.
Yep.
And I'm just like, everything is so much faster, you know. So my friends that are still in, you know, I'm telling them, bro, listen, just be ready when you get out here and you put your feet on the ground out here, bro, it's 100 miles per hour. You know, with the way the technology is going, and, you know, give it another 2 to 5 years, and the way the AI is going on, man, it's just everything is moving 100 to 200 miles per hour. And if you're not preparing your mind for the mental, one of my friends, I think it was my dad that was telling me, my dad did some years in, and he was just telling me how when you're in the inside, you're almost more healthy inside than when you come out here, because at least when you're in there, you know, you're getting fed a certain amount of times. When you get out here, it's like you in the hustle and bustle. You know, you got to find your own meal. You know, you got to make your own way. And I think that's like the biggest thing where guys really struggle is like the speed of everything on the outside and how fast technology has things moving. You know, job applications on the computer now. It ain't no paper applications.
Yep.
You know, so you know, if you're not prepared for that stuff, man, I've seen so many guys just go under, man. And you know, to hear your story and to see how what you're doing, man, it's amazing, bro. And
Thank you.
if ain't nobody else tell you, bro, I'm proud of you because I see so many guys that get caught up in that same crowd, in that same area, and they just, I don't think at times even they even want it to be like that, but they just they don't really have the tools. And so one of my next questions is, what are your thoughts on that whole system? Like, do you really believe that it's meant to rehabilitate, or are they on purposely when they lock people up? Is it meant to be a cycle? You know, I think what the stat is, I think within 3 years, 75% of people go back.
Mm.
Do you believe it's meant to be like that, or do they truly want to rehabilitate people when they go through that system?
So the prison system here in America is called, most states have a Department of Corrections. That's what they call them. They used to be called, you know, reformatories and you know, penitentiaries. Now in this day and age, they're called Department of Corrections. And so that gives society the impression that corrective measures are being dispensed to the individuals that is coming into the care of the Department of Corrections. That's not happening. It's not happening because, one, in most of these facilities, individuals are referred to as inmates, one of the most derogatory terms that you can call a human being, or offender. So you're talking about an individual has violated the law, has stood in front of a judge, and has been sentenced to the Department of Corrections, where society and taxpayers are given the impression, in fact, most mission statements of the Department of Corrections says that it is going to rehabilitate these individuals and return them back home to their communities home. I'm sure you heard the statement, how can you rehabilitate something that has never been habilitated in the first place?
Mm.
But to get to your question, the prison system is not set up to rehabilitate anyone.
Mm.
The prison system exacerbates trauma. The prison system incapacitates you. That's what it's all about. It's not doing any rehabilitation. It's not doing any type of reformation. Only thing it's doing is giving you space to make the decision that you're going to better yourself or you're just going to languish away. So it all falls on the individual, because I could have spent 17 years of my life playing dominoes, you know, going to rec every day, playing sports, watching soap operas. I could have spent my last 17 years just languishing away, eating, you know, all of this unhealthy canteen food, this slop that they serve us, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's how I could have spent my 17 years. Instead, I realized that there was a library that had some of the most outdated books. But one thing that about knowledge is never outdated. I had the opportunity to have my family send me books. And so I took advantage of that. I had books sent in. I took advantage of the library. I had frequent conversations with staff members just to better understand them and why they were working in the capacity in which they were working in. Many of these staff have said to me, hey, I'm no different than you. You just got caught. So they understand that we're dealing with a system that is unjust from the root. from its core. This system is a continuation of chattel slavery. We are living in a modern day plantation system called the criminal justice system. And that's why you have so many nonprofit organizations, so many advocates who are working to disrupt this system in this current form, because it is a continuation, it's a continuum of chattel slavery. The 13th Amendment says that neither slavery nor servitude should exist except for if you committed a crime. So basically, what we're being told in no uncertain terms, if you commit a crime, guess what? You go back into slavery. And 42% of the prison population in this country is Black. That's no coincidence. That's no coincidence. This is all a strategic attempt to keep Black people suppressed, subjected, and under the thumb of white supremacy racism, the system of white supremacy racism. But as advocates and advocacy organizations who understand what is happening, we're working daily to change the laws and the policies that were passed 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago that is continuing to cause harm on Black and brown communities here in this country. And it's very important that those who have this lived experience is at the table guiding the strategy on how we disrupt this system. Because those of us who have gone to prison and have spent a significant time studying, who have spent a significant time doing that internal work, we have come home from our period of incarceration with an analysis of what the problem is within this system and what viable solutions exist to prevent further harm from being caused. And so it is very important that directly impacted individuals, directly impacted citizens are at the table guiding strategy on how we disrupt this neo form of slavery that we're faced with, that is impacting literally all 300 plus million Americans. We have 70 to 100 million Americans that have a conviction history, meaning that they've never gone to prison, but they have a conviction history. So you have 1 in 3 Americans who have had some proximity to the criminal justice system in this country. That's a problem. And so as advocates, as community members, as taxpayers, like, we have to be very intentional in holding our elected officials accountable, policymakers accountable, and call them out on their BS, because people's lives are being upended. I'm not saying individuals shouldn't be held accountable for their actions, for their indiscretions. That's not what I'm being said. What I'm saying is that the current system is racist, it's predatory, and it specifically targets Black and brown people disproportionately. And that is causing a great deal of harm to Black and brown communities, as we just spoke about how a lot of young boys and girls are suffering because they have there's no presence of their fathers in their lives. And over 500,000 men who are in prison right now are fathers to minor children. And so what is going to happen to these children with their fathers being incarcerated? We're creating intergenerational cycles of incarceration by removing these men from their children's lives. And so the urgency is now. There's an urgency, and that urgency is now to get activated, to join forces with these organizations who are working to disrupt the perpetual incarceration cycle in this country, to join advocates who have been impacted by this system, who have an analysis on how we can solve the problem of mass incarceration in this country. A lot of people say, oh, the system is broken. But in reality, the system is doing exactly what it set out to do.
Real.
A system of control.
So what's Dream.org's biggest goal, for, let's say, the rest of this year? What is Dream.org doing to combat this system?
So here at Dream.org, our mission is to close prison doors and open doors of opportunity. And the way we do that is by partnering with directly impacted leaders all across this country who have been impacted by the criminal justice system, who have an analysis on what needs to happen in their state to reduce the footprint of mass incarceration. We are working to ensure that these leaders have the tools that they need to have conversations with elected officials, with policymakers. We are ensuring that these leaders have tools that they need to build capacity, to organize, to galvanize their community, to lobby elected officials about bad legislation, about bad policies that are on the books. We are going into our third year of our Dream Justice cohort, where we take 20 plus leaders from all across the country who have been impacted by the criminal justice system, and we are training them in in advocacy. We're training them in organizing. We're training them in policy on how to build successful campaigns. And after they graduate from our cohort, they go on to do some very impactful and dynamic work all across this country. And so we're committed to ensuring that marginalized communities, directly impacted communities have access to the resources and the tools that they need to advocate for themselves. And we're not saying that we are the organization that individuals should work with. We are saying that we are one of the organizations who are committed to disrupting all systems of oppression that are intent on harming Black and brown communities. And so the rest of this year, we're continuing, man, to put our feet to the gas pedal and bringing about change at the federal level as well as at the state level. We're working on passing the Equal Act. The Equal Act is a piece of legislation that gets rid of the disparity between crack and powder cocaine. And we're working to get that legislation passed in our Congress because there's so many people who are languishing in prison as a result of the unjust war on drugs from 20, 30 years ago, who are still in prison as a result of being caught in possession of crack cocaine, who have received, space age sentences for possession of crack cocaine, where their counterparts who were in possession of powder cocaine that was the same equal amount received a slap on their wrist. So we're trying to do away with that disparity and make it 1-to-1 so that individuals can, return home to their families and their communities, return home to their children, so that they can begin to also disrupt the cycle of incarceration in this country.
Love that, man. Love that. Love what y'all are doing, man. That's powerful. Going forward, you want any of your own children?
So I'm actually a father. I have two children. I have two beautiful children. I have a son who is named after me, my namesake, Sean Jr., and I have a daughter, Amina V. She's 2 years old. My son is 4 years old. Yeah, man, I have two beautiful children, man, with my lovely wife. And we're loving, this journey of parenthood. I'm loving this journey of fatherhood. One of the greatest joys that I get is picking my children up or getting them dressed every morning and dropping them off to daycare and picking them up from daycare. My children, I pray for my children. And I'm just grateful that God saw fit to bless me to steward them through this life, to impart in them values that was imparted in me as a young Black boy growing up, in this country. I'm just glad that I have an opportunity to like have an impact on their lives and give them the guidance that they need that will contribute to them being successful and will bless them to be humanizers, to challenge all systems of oppression wherever they may find it. My son can walk into a room and he can look up and he can identify photos of Malcolm X, Evers, Martin Luther King, and other civil rights advocates from the past up into the present. He's able to identify them because I'm very intent on ensuring that they have the tools that they need to succeed in the society in which we find ourselves. And my wife is an educator, and so if you don't know, educators are a little bit obsessive when it comes to ensuring that their children know what they need to know to show up in the classroom as vessels to be filled with information that they will be able to take and use for their own betterment.
Love that. How has becoming a father, you've been in the game for 4 years now. How has that changed your perspective on life?
It's changed my perspective on life a lot, but more than anything, it has given me a vigor to live. I live for them. I don't live for myself anymore. Everything that I do, is for them. Every endeavor that I engage in is for them. I'm always thinking, how will this impact my children? And as parents, I think that's always something that's at the forefront of our mind is how will this impact, my children? And so every decision that I make, whether professionally or personally, I'm always wondering how will this impact my children? My wife and I, when we're making decisions, we often ask, how will this impact, our children? We're fortunate to have parents who really love our children. And we just, went back to Milwaukee to drop our children off to be with their grandparents for 2 weeks. And so that allows us, to strengthen our relationship and not have to, give so much attention to our children. It allows us to like focus in and hone in on one another so that we can continue to show up for one another. But more importantly, it allows us to show up better for them as parents.
Man, so important, bro.
Yep.
I just hit 11 years anniversary, man.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it, man. And one thing I always tell, younger people who are freshly married or under the years of me, man, that right there, what you said is like one of the most important things. And that was something that I didn't understand early in marriage. Man, my wife and I, we got married so young, and there was a lot we didn't understand. And so now, we're starting to learn different things within like the last 3 years. And we're really, once you start to get to them 8 and 9 and 10 years,
Yep.
When things really start getting real. And I know for us, we got into our 30s, we got married. We've been together really her whole adult life. When she was 18, I was 20. Now that we're into our 30s and stuff, we're realizing a lot of different things. And and it's so important to set aside that time, bro. It's like, if I don't tell anybody anything else about marriage, please set aside time, because year by year, month by month, really week by week, we're changing.
Yep.
I change as a man, your wife changes as a woman.
Yep.
We change as people, and it's not always bad change. We're changing, we're just growing.
Yep.
And our expectations change, and everything changes, and you got to keep up with the change. Same thing with your children.
Yep.
You know, your children change from year to year, and you got to keep up. And in order to continue to grow,
Yep.
and setting aside that time, you know, when it's, you know, my babies always be like, well, daddy, you always take mommy out on dates. I'm like, yeah, we
Yeah.
need that. Like sometimes I want y'all jokers to be somewhere else, man. You know, me and mommy need time too, you
Absolutely.
know, and that's just one of those important things to continue dating, bro.
Yep.
That's like top of the list, you know, communication. But the communication comes with setting aside that time sometimes. You know, it's hard to communicate a lot of times when you got the children just always needing you. They need this, they need that.
Yep.
So y'all get a chance to really continue to learn each other and grow, man. So man, yeah, keep on pushing in that, bro. I love to hear that, bro.
Absolutely, man. You know, that's you know, my wife is also, and we just came up on our 5th year anniversary. May 18th is our 5th year anniversary. We've been together for 6 years, actually. I met her probably about 9 months after I came home from prison. We dated for a year, and you know, I proposed to her. But one of the things I often tell folks is that, you know, when I came home, I wasn't looking for a girlfriend. I came home looking for a wife. I was
Oh,
34 years old when I came home from prison. I'm 40 now. I'll be 41, God willing, my birthday. And so when I came home, I wasn't looking, you know, to date, you know, multiple women. I came home with a certain idea of a relationship. I came home with a certain idea of the type of woman that I wanted to be, who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And lo and behold, God put her in my life immediately. You know, I didn't even have the opportunity to like play the field, so to speak. I mean, I was promiscuous probably the first 2 months of my being released from prison. But once I met my wife, you know, everything sat down and it began to, you know, I began to invest in that relationship. I began to build with her and came to the realization that this is who I want to spend the rest of my life with. So we got married. A year later, here comes my son. About 14, 15 months after my son, here comes my daughter. And so, you know, God blessed me with a boy and a girl, which, I mean, I hit the jackpot. You know, I got my son and I got my girl. I mean, what more can I ask for? And so we definitely understand the importance of like setting aside that time for one another, keeping that open line of communication, like live and active. But all of the stuff that has happened in my life, bro, like I literally prayed for this stuff while I was in prison. My grandmother used to often tell me to speak things into existence. You know, she was a praying woman. She was a woman who believed in the power of God and the power of the tongue. And she often told me, like, whatever you want, speak it into existence. And I assure you, if you speak it into existence, God is going to manifest it. And so while I was in prison, everything that I'm doing, like you can have a conversation with any and everyone that was proximate to me while I was incarcerated, who heard me speak, who was on a unit with me, who was on a pod with me, who was on a tier with me. And they'll tell you, like, man, bro talked about all of that. He talked about what type of wife he wanted. He talked about, you know, being a father, because, you know, not having my father in my life has made me a great father, because I know what I wanted from my father that I didn't get. I know to be sure to give my son all of those things. Like everything that I wanted from my father, I'm able to give to my son. My son loves cutting grass with me.
yeah.
You know, he loves working out with me. Everything he see me doing, he wants to do. And so I'm mindful that I have to be very careful of what I expose him to, because he see that doing it and he wants to do it. And so as fathers, as mothers, like we have to be very mindful of what we expose our children to, within our home, and we also have to be mindful of what we allow our children to be exposed to via television, via the internet, via social media, because those are outlets that have an impact and impression on our children that can deter our parenting. And so we have to be very mindful and careful of what we're allowing our children to be exposed to. Be a parent to your children, talk to their friends, talk to their friends' parents, and understand what type of background, what type of upbringing is happening in that household. And if there's alignment, then go ahead and allow your children to hang out with these folks. If there's no alignment, you're going to have to, put your foot down and tell your son and daughter, like, their values don't align with ours. That's what needs to happen to disrupt those cycles of incarceration, to disrupt peer pressure, to disrupt poor decision making. And as our children get older, they will appreciate us for it. They would appreciate us for it. Like my grandmother used to often tell me, those boys don't mean you no good. I thought my grandmother just wanted to interrupt my fun. But when I sat in that prison cell, I said to myself, she was right.
All right.
She was right. And I wish I would have listened to her. My uncles, when they saw my friends, they used to tell me, like, them dudes don't have your best interest at heart. What is you hanging out with them for? I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be looked at as being cool. But my family and my grandmother, who had this intuition that you can't pay for, was able to take one look at them and say, they don't mean you no good. They go get you in trouble. And she was right. And she was right. And so as parents, we have to have that intuition, and we have to not tell our children those folks don't mean you no good, but we have to really interrupt that relationship. Because if you don't, you'll be getting a knock on your door from the police saying to you, hey, we have your child in custody, or hey, the worst case scenario, your son or your daughter has been found, deceased. So interrupt those relationships. Interrupt them. Don't just say these young people are a bad influence on you. No, interrupt them. Interrupt them. Because if you interrupt them, you're going to save your children's life. That's just my position. A lot of people may differ, but as someone who had friends who had a bad influence, who were a bad influence on my life, and I'm sure that their parents would probably took one look at me and said that I was a bad influence on their children's life. And they probably was right. We were bad influence on one another because we all were smoking weed. We were all selling drugs. We were all carrying guns. We were all doing things we didn't have no business doing. We all were doing things that were diametrically opposed to the values, the morals, and the principles that were instilled in us. And we knew better.
That's that real. That's that real. Disrupt the relationships.
Yep.
It's the message right there. Disrupt them to save our babies.
Yep.
And it's really on us, as parents, because a lot of times kids, they don't know. I believe most young people do have good intentions, and they just don't know. Honestly don't know until they find out. And it's like they always say, trouble is so easy to get into, man. It's a world of trouble to get out of it.
Yep.
And they don't, a lot of them find out in the wrong time. Like my young man I was talking about earlier, I think now that he's incarcerated and he's in there, and when I write him and stuff and we talk, and he's always real apologetic, and he's just like, man, I see now, when I get out, bro, I'm gonna do right, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I see that, hanging with this group of people where it got me, and it's good that he's seeing it now, but it's like, bro, I was trying to tell you,
Yep.
And and it's like, and I could see it, you know, because I've been there. And so sometimes, you know, just listening to the elders, you know, and we ain't gonna harp too much long on that, but man, the community, it is so important for us to have the elders in our community, you
Yep.
know, the role models, you know, those who can warn you, you know, and say, bro, listen, you go down that way if you want to. I'm telling you what's gonna happen. You
Yep.
know,
Absolutely.
I don't think it's enough of that in our community. You know, there are some, you know, and shout out to all the people that do the community work and are standing in the gap, you know, really standing up in the paint for these kids, you know, for all these young men and young women, you know, because they need that, you know. And sometimes they might not hear us that first, second, or third time, but we got to continue to keep that same message and be consistent, you know. And I believe that, you know, we might, I mean, of course, we ain't gonna save them all,
Yep.
but you know, we will save some. You know, there will
Mhm.
be some that will, you know, heed to our voice, man. And you know, we got to keep doing that, man. You know, organizations like yours, you know, you got to continue to keep your feet on the ground, continue to pound that pavement, you know, because I believe that this ain't the end for us, you know. Um, our community has been through so much, decades, you know, centuries, really, of
Mhm.
oppression and all of that. But I just don't believe that's the end for us. That's not. It's not. It ain't done. God ain't done with us, you know. And I'm a true believer that we are His people. And
Absolutely. We in the desert. We going through the desert right now. You know,
real,
the children of Israel, you know, it took them 40 years to make a 3-day journey. And so, you know, black people in America, we in the desert right now. And we're trying to figure it out. We running into trials and tribulations. And all we got to do is just shut the hell up and listen to that still small voice. And if we listen to that still small voice and heed that still small voice, then we can begin to, you know, unshackle and break the chains, you know, that is around our bank accounts, that is
mm,
around our minds, that is around our health, that is around our communities. Once we shut up, turn down the music,
mm,
you know, turn down the designer clothes, the hip hop,
mm,
you know, turn down all of this superficial BS and
mm,
listen and heed that voice, then we begin to free ourselves.
mm.
Then
That's
we begin to free ourselves.
that's that real, man. I got one more question for you, man. If you could sit down like you and I are doing right now with your 18-year-old self and give that young man one piece of advice going forward, knowing everything that you know right now, what would you say to him?
I would say be your own man. And what I mean by that is don't be a follower. Um, and I say to my son every day, we're leaders, we're not followers. We don't follow people. We don't want to dress like other people. We don't want to sound like other people. We don't want to look like other people. We don't want to do things just because other people are doing them. We want to do things if we sincerely desire to do those things. If we sincerely like ripped jeans, buy you a pair of ripped jeans, but don't buy you a pair of ripped jeans because your friend Joey got a pair of ripped jeans. Don't buy, you know, this so-called designer shirt because all of your friends are wearing designer shirts. Buy this stuff if you sincerely want it and also if you need it. So I would say to my 18-year-old self, you know, be your own man, be a leader, don't be a follower. Most of our young men and young boys are very impressionable and are following the crowd and not standing up and saying to their friends, I'm not doing that. That's not right. You know, I'm not doing that because that's not right. And that's not how I was raised. Instead, they go along because their friends are doing it and often wind up in a situation that has changed the trajectory of their life. And so I would tell my 18-year-old self, be your own man, be a leader, don't be a follower.
Mm. Great advice, man. Great advice, bro. Well, man, listen. I think we done hit on a lot of different points today, man. This was good, man. And I believe and I pray and I hope, that if whoever hears this, if it be a young man that will hear this, that they would take heed to some of these things that you talked about, man. And I pray that the message of dream.org will capture, people and have people want to be able to join. And I want you to talk about that. If people want to be a part or be of any assistance to you or follow you, how can people follow dream.org and get in contact with you?
So people can follow me on Instagram at @thefire_this time. They can follow me on Facebook at Sean Kemet, Sean SEAN, Kemet KEMET. They can also follow me on LinkedIn under Sean Wilson. I'm on Twitter as well. I'm not that active on Twitter, but you can also go to my to our website dream.org to follow us and see the things that we're working on as it pertains to climate justice, as it pertains to tech equity, as well as criminal justice reform. And folks who are, have their phone at the ready, you can text empathy to 97483 to join our empathy network. Our empathy network is probably the nation's largest network of directly impacted individuals, crime survivors, allies, and just people who are committed to seeing the criminal justice system change for the better. So you can text, I'll say it again, empathy to 97483 to join the empathy network. And in doing that, you join a community of like-minded individuals who wants to see this system change and not continue to cause harm upon specifically Black and brown people.
Wow. So yeah, I just followed you on Facebook, man, and we're gonna definitely stay connected, and we're gonna keep this thing pushing, man. I'll definitely share a lot of your stuff, man, bring some more awareness to it. But yeah, man, I'm gonna let you go. Get back to the film, continue doing what you're doing, bro. I'm encouraged, just hearing your story and to see, one of us, get up out that system and, break these walls down and continue pushing, man. I just love hearing stories of guys who come out of that system. Cause like I say, I see so many that end up spiraling, going back down, man. And every time I do see a brother that, gets up out of there and he on his feet, got his belt on, and you riding with it, bro. You major props to you, bro.
Man, listen, I truly appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation to come onto your platform and share my story and talk about some of the work that dream.org is doing across the country. Salute to you for creating this platform for these type of conversations to be had, these much needed conversations to be had. And if there's anything that I myself or our organization can do to support you in the work that you're doing, man, please feel free to reach out to us, man, and we'll be more than happy to sit down and have a conversation on how we can collaborate to continue to, build your brand and get your message out, to the masses.
For sure. Appreciate that, man. So for all the listeners out there, man, y'all heard where y'all can follow him at, man. Go follow him on all social medias. Well, everywhere that he said, just go find them, man, and support the work. We gotta support one another, man. That's huge. That's a big thing for us, and we gotta be able to do and continue to do for those that's already doing it. So without all that's been said, like I say, I just pray that somebody hears this and it will help them in some way, shape, or form. And of course, Dad Can We Talk will be back with more episodes. I got plenty of other dads that are I'm waiting to get in contact with. Man, I might have a huge episode coming. I'm praying on it, man. I ain't even gonna say the guest name, but because I don't know if I'm gonna get him yet, but I did make a contact. It's like my bucket list person, man. So I'm just praying I get it. If I don't, it is what it is. But y'all stay tuned for that. I should have some more shirts in this summer, so y'all continue to stay in tune and follow for that. And yeah, man, we got Father's Day coming up. We got some things coming up next month, man. I'm about to go on this Washington, D.C. trip, safety patrol trip with my baby next month. So I'm gonna take about a week or two off. And yeah, man, just got some things coming up. So y'all continue to stay tuned to Dad Can We Talk. Y'all continue to support. Y'all know where y'all can find this at on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on the website at dadcanwetalk.com. Y'all can find me on Facebook, Instagram at Dad Can We Talk, YouTube, Dad Can We Talk. Continue to subscribe. I've been getting a lot of subscribers in the last month. So I guess people were taking heed, man. I need that, y'all. So I'm almost at 200. I think I need like 3 more. But y'all continue to support the podcast. My next guest, my man Danky Banks. Y'all know I'm ready for this one, man. He is crazy. I cannot wait to sit down and talk with him. For everybody from Gainesville, y'all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, man, y'all continue to support. Keep it pushing. All the dads out there, continue to love on them babies, man, and do what you do. Continue being great. Sean, man, it was great talking with you, man. Much love here. Keep doing what you're doing, my man.
Salute, King. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. It's Dad Can We Talk, episode 113, and we out.